Good morning. I want to thank everybody. A treat to see familiar faces, see some people just joining the class for the first time. I want to say one of the gifts of Zoom is the opportunity not to have to go anywhere, because I understand how it would be hard to teach a half-hour class at the synagogue in terms of driving to get there for a half-hour class, let alone for some people like Lindy tuning in from New York. It is therefore the first privilege of this Zoom moment to know how this current situation has created this new opportunity for me to be able to teach and to do it by coming to your screens. And I am just so happy to see each of you. It motivates me to keep learning, knowing that I'm going to be able to share and be able to listen to your reactions. So like most days, I'll teach for 20 minutes and then look for 10 minutes of reaction. And we'll conclude with the Kaddish so that Carl Bendroff can honor his mom. And if there are others who have a yahrzeit, I encourage you to join with Carl. I'll be also sharing the Kaddish at the end of our study. This morning, we reached double digits in doing a psalm a day, 3 days a week. Psalm 10. It's also a pause to say there's 150 psalms. So there's still a long way to go, but we're not rushing. And the value of this opportunity is to take our time. And where normally when I pray psalms, because psalms are at the center of Jewish prayer, a word or two or a phrase will pop out, but I've never taken the time until this.
Rabbi, you muted yourself.
Okay, so the opportunity is to do this in a way that by going slowly, we can appreciate the artistry of the Psalter, words chosen, the structure, but even more, the opportunity to hear the psalm and to hear how does it resonate for us? How is this psalm a poem that evokes our own yearnings and does so in the context of expressing ourselves to the larger presence of God? The power of prayer, all prayer are conversations with God. And by speaking to God, there's a quality of unfiltered honesty. That's again, both is private, but also in the mindset of you're addressing God who understands. And so in this psalm, what we have is something different than we've had in the earlier psalms. I have entitled this psalm, Beware the Wicked, for you will hear in the words of this poet a description of the nature of the wicked. And there's another underlying component, and that is a sense of social injustice, a protectiveness for the orphan, a protectiveness for the economically weak. And that, of course, is a central theme in the Bible. We're approaching in our Torah readings Leviticus 18 and 19 with the emphasis on the need to be just and to protect the weak. Psalm 10, one other comment is challenging, and I, just before we began, made a change with Eric's help, in that, as I've noted before, in Hebrew, there are no capital pronouns. So when you have he, you don't know if the he is referring to the wicked or the he is referring to God in response to the wicked. And so there's an ambiguity And that's one of the reasons I had to make a change, is as I went back to prepare this morning, I changed it from God to the wicked. So with that, let me begin by reading the psalm and then talking about it. I mentioned yesterday that Psalm 9 and 10 are often linked. So the first letter of this psalm is Lamed, for the word Lama, why? And yesterday we had Aleph to Chaf, the first 9 letters of the alphabet, and now it gets picked up. And that's why some scholars, and even Rashi, commenting in the Talmud, put 9 and 10 as 2 halves. With that said, they can also stand separately. And so let me read the words so that you can feel. This is, 1 second. Eric, are you there?
Yes.
This is not verse 5 the way.
I can't change it right now. It's
Okay.
an image, so it's going to have to
got
wait
you.
until after.
All right. So I will make note verse 5. I'm going to read it a little bit differently, in part because I was fooled in working with the pronoun. And I'll come back to verse 5 and share different translations. Why, Adonai, do you stand at a distance? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? Through the arrogance of the wicked, the poor is hotly pursued. They are caught in the schemes that they devised. For the wicked boast of their spirit's cravings, and that grasping person blesses and blasphemes Adonai. The wicked in arrogance does not seek God. All thoughts are, there is no God. The evil prospers at all times. Your judgments are as if far beyond. At the adversaries, the evil snorts at them. The wicked say in their heart, I shall not be shaken. Across generations, I shall never be in trouble. The wicked's mouth is full of deceit and fraud. Under the tongue is mischief and iniquity. The wicked sits in the lurking places of the villages, in secret places, slaying the innocent, eyes on the watch for the helpless. The wicked lies in wait to catch the poor, catches the poor by drawing them up into the net. The wicked crouches, bows down, and the helpless falls into their mighty claws. The wicked say in their heart, El, God has forgotten, a hiding presence who will never see. Arise, Adonai, El, lift up your hand, forget not the humble. Why does the wicked mock God when saying internally, you will not demand? You do look, you do observe mischief and anger in order to wreak it with your hand. Upon you the helpless relies. For the orphan, you have been the helper. Break the arm of the wicked, and for those who are bad, search out their wickedness until none will be found. Adonai is guide forever and ever. The nations will perish from out of the land. You have heard the cravings of the humble. Prepare their hearts. You will cause your ear to attend, to do justice for the orphan and the oppressed, so that a mortal of the earth will no longer tyrannize. So in this psalm, there is a strong sense of why. That's the opening word, lama, why? And the why, for me, as I hear it, continues to resonate with this sense of befuddled despair as the wicked prosper. And the wicked prosper, and for this Psalter, there is this keen awareness of one, the nature of the mindset of the wicked, and two, the suffering of the weak, of the poor. So some thoughts to pull this together, and then I'm going to return to 5, which was so perplexing in my translation, and I'll share why. So the arrogant, verse 2, hotly pursues the poor, the ani. That's like our matzah, right? Our lechem oni, the poor. And they are caught in this, and it's not clear with verse 2 who's getting caught. But it's let them be caught in the schemes that they are devising. Let them be caught in the schemes that they devised. Verse 3, here's the nature of the wicked. The wicked boast of their cravings. Now, the word nephesh, I here have it as spirit, and we'll come back to this word of nephesh. The wicked boast of their spirit's craving, and they're grasping, and that grasping person, again, you get the sense of greed. That grasping person, he's boastful and greedy. And in Hebrew, there's a word play. Berech can be a blessing, or it can also be a curse, because it's used euphemistically for curse. So he blesses, but his blessings are that of blasphemy because they're insincere. In fact, this verse, verse 3, is quoted in the Talmud in Baba Kama 9a, and refers to a person who, in preparing a loaf of bread, is required to take out a portion, what's called challah, a portion to dedicate that, to give that as if you will, a gift or taxes to the priest. So in the Talmud, that person does not take out the challah, which would be done privately, and then publicly, as he goes to eat the bread, blesses God. And in doing so, is engaged in an act of hypocrisy, engaged in an act of blasphemy. Verse 4, but the wicked in arrogance, and again, the word arrogance, does not seek God. All thoughts are is God. Hence the sense of lacking no accountability. Some of you may have seen the Woody Allen movie, Crimes and Misdemeanors, in which he raises the issue, if there is nobody who sees you, can you get away with a crime? Or in Plato's terms, if there is nobody who sees, if there is no person who sees you, if you're invisible, that's how Plato framed it. Plato said, if a person was invisible, would they be good? If they were invisible, would they not steal, knowing they are not accountable? So here, the wicked in arrogance says, there is no God. And now verse 5. Originally, I translated it as, because it's again, he. So his ways prosper at all times. Your judgments, now referring to God, are high above, far beyond. All the adversaries snort at them. So the Hebrew here is a bit convoluted. And here's Jonathan. Here is Jonathan Alter's translation. So this will be an opportunity to hear how differently verses get translated. Verse 5, His ways are uncertain in every hour. Your judgments are high above him. All his foes he inflames. Another reading from Benjamin Siegel. His ways prosper in every season. Your judgments are far beyond him. He snorts at all his foes. And the last one. His ways are always successful. Your judgments are far removed from him. But as for all his foes, he puffs at them. So verse 5, I was mistaken, and that this refers to the following tension. This wicked person, he's succeeding. His ways prosper at all times. His success feeds his arrogance. And your judgments, God, are far beyond, meaning he's are far removed from him. He's getting away with his evil ways. And what does he do when he's challenged? He snorts at his foes. The word yafiach, he snorts at them. I haven't seen this in the translation, but can also be he trashes them. Because in modern Hebrew, a pach is a garbage can. So yafiach can be breathes, it's from breath. So he snorts at them or he trashes them. And now 6. So that's also why 5 is also about the wicked. The wicked say in their heart, I shall not be shaken across generations. I shall never be in trouble. The wicked's mouth is full of deceit and fraud. Under the tongue is mischief and iniquity. So what we have is a description of the wicked. And the description of the wicked is that they are arrogant and successful, deceitful. They're the ones who are lurking in the place of the villages, their eyes on watch for the helpless. Verse 9 will be a shift in metaphor. The wicked lion weighed in a secret place as a lion in his lair. What's the nature of the lion? The commentators say the lion is artful in timing, knowing how to leap in the last moment. So lies in wait to catch the poor, catches the poor by drawing them up in the net. And here in 9, there's a shift in metaphor because lions don't have nets. Lions do have this quality, though, of hiding and pouncing. In this case, it shifts now to the wicked doing their evil at a distance. They set up the net to catch an animal and are able to pull in the animal unseen. And verse 11, back to this taunting of God. El has forgotten a hiding presence who will never see. So there's a sense of being unaccountable before God. And now a plea. Arise, Adonai, El, lift up your hand, forget not the humble. And here in Hebrew, verse 12, it's written as forget not the poor. And you had that word poor explicitly earlier on in the psalm, but there's something called ketiv and kri, how a word is written and how it is read. And the rabbis of the early Middle Ages, the scribes, said that this should be read as not don't forget the poor, but don't forget the humble, the anavim. And anav, that word, also does appear in the psalm. But if you look at verse 9, you get the poor, and here it's the humble. One last stylistic piece, and that is this word Baal, that is an unusual word in Hebrew for not. And it punctuates this description of the wicked. The word Baal, let me show you the 5 times, which is a key motif in this psalm. Verse 4, Rasha, the wicked, Kigova apo, which means in elevated nose. Here I translate verse 4, Kigavo apo, as arrogance, but literally it means an elevated nose, a nose up in the air. Baal Yidrosh, does not seek, in parentheses, seek God, because, as you see in the rest of the verse, this person says, Ein Elohim, there is no God. The word Baal in verse 6, the wicked say in their heart, I shall not be shaken. Baal Emot, I will not be shaken. The third time the word Baal appears is the wicked say in their heart, El has forgotten, a hiding presence, Baal Ra'ah Lanetzach, who will never see. Verse 15, the word Baal, break the arm of the wicked, which can also be understood as break the strength of the wicked. For those are bad, search out their wickedness, Baal Tim Sa, until none will be found. So now the Baal gets reversed. And last, with Baal, the last verse, 18. Do justice for the orphan and the oppressed, Baal Yosef, so that they will no longer continue, La'arotz Enosh, to tyrannize the mortal, so that a mortal will no longer tyrannize will no longer tyrannize. So the word Baal appears 5 times, sometimes in the mouth of the wicked, and then it gets reversed. Baal, I think, has a verbal resonance. This is my one original contribution in terms of a commentary. It has an assonance. An assonance means it's heard in a familiar way. And Baal can either mean master, or Baal is a heathen god in the Bible. And therefore, to pull Psalm 10 together, Psalm 10 begins with the word lama. Why? Why, God, do you allow wickedness in your world? Those who would deny you, Baal, deny, they are worshiping an idol. They are seeking mastery. Why do you allow those wicked people who are snorting, trashing the good, to take advantage of the poor, the orphan, and the wicked? In sum, Psalm 10 is a psalm acknowledging that in our world there is wickedness and that the wicked do prosper, asking God to take action. It begins with the word lama, why, and does never resolve that question. With that, I've gone a little bit over. Any reactions? Let's take 5 minutes to see if people would like to react to this description of beware the wicked. You'll have to unmute yourself if you want to share, or raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Jerry?
Did. You have to unmute.
Yeah, you're unmuted, Jerry.
Oh, okay.
ahead.
Thank you. Can you please mention the 5 times that Baal is mentioned? I missed one of them.
Yes, verses 4, 6, 11.
Oh, 11 I missed. And also, that's a very interesting point that you make about assonance, because the other word is Baal, right?
Right, exactly.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's the assonance, the Baal. And again, Baal, which in modern Hebrew can be husband, because it's like Mr. or master.
Right, Baali, yeah.
Right? So the word, and it's the one word that gets repeated over and over, this Baal. And it's an unusual word in Hebrew for not. It's not used very often elsewhere in Psalms. And it seems to, for me, have this quality again of assonance, a verbal sound, suggesting that their negativity is also an assertion of mastery and is a quality of idolatry. So that's really the nature of the wicked.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you.
Negativity, assertion of mastery, and that's a quality of idolatry. You know what one more comment in terms of this psalm for today, and then I'll pull this psalm together. Joanne, I'll mute you. Go ahead, Joanne.
I noticed in one of the verses, it says Adonai-L. What's the significance of that?
So again, just for speed, what verse?
It's around, oh, here. It's around verse 10. It says
It's verse 12, yeah. So arise, here's the shift. You're putting your finger, Joan, on the shift. And the shift is verse 12. Till verse 1 opens with this, why God is this going on? And then you have verses 2 to 11 as descriptions of the arrogance and the successes of the wicked. And verse 12, Kuma, rise up, God, and rise up, God. And the first Adonai, and usually the word for God in Psalms is Adonai, because Adonai is the personal, intimate name for God. And here the Psalter is talking to God in this personal way. El is God in terms of power, Elohim. So listen, my beloved God, El, God of power, lift up your hand. So it's the one place, and it's the pivotal turn. And this coupling is significant in terms of that shift in verse 12. But he's not fully, as in many Psalms, turning it over to God, because as it continues, verse 12 is, arise, Adonai, El, lift up your hand, forget not the humble. But he comes back to the question, but this time instead of lama, it's al-meh, which is on what? On what account does the wicked mock God when saying eternally? On what account? So this is a psalm of questions for which no answer is really provided. In that sense, it's different than the other psalms, which tend to have a quality of assurance. Here it's more open. Last comment, Carl, and then I'll pull it together. I'll go ahead, Carl.
Okay, so my question is, I'm looking at another screen on it, but is it a coincidence, like a play on words? So El for Adonai and Baal, just one letter difference between the Bet and the Aleph. I don't know if that's anything to consider.
It's not one I have given thought to, but it is an interesting, and what's interesting is, and they're so close to each other in verse 11. He says in his heart, Shechach El. El, forgotten is El. Histir panav, he has hidden his face. Bal ra'ah, does not see. Lanetzach, eternally. I'm not sure, but it's the kind of sensitivity that is worthy of expression. So let me pull this together. This, when I read it, moved me because I identified with this qualities of the wicked in terms of the description of not being accountable, of saying, I'm successful, therefore there is no God, of setting traps and taking advantage of the weak, and that element of social justice, of the concern of the Psalter for the humble, for the weak, for the orphan that are mentioned. And I, again, come back to this as religious poetry, that for the Psalter, the condition of the weak matters to God, and therefore warrants questioning God. Why? On what account does this persist in your world? And yet, I found this somewhat harder to teach and even to translate, in part because of the pronouns and avoiding pronouns. And last, for me, the key to it might be this word Baal, an unusual negativity in Psalms and in Hebrew that here is clearly important. It's repeated 5 times, both in describing the nature of the evil person and in what will happen to the evil person, and that Baal has 3 connotations: no, N-O, master, and idol. And that those are somehow linked in this psalm as the rough terrain of finding justice, which is what God promises. And so with this psalm, Psalm 10, we move to Psalm 11 tomorrow, and I will share Psalm 11 is only 7 verses long. It's a very short psalm and will be, in some ways, some of the same themes, but moving toward greater assurance. I like Psalm 10 because it doesn't resolve. Tomorrow, we'll see how Psalm 11 resonates for us. Thank you each for participating today. Carl, we're going to say Amen to you as you join me in saying Kaddish. What the words there? Kaddish. Yitkadah,
Gadol,
V'yitkadah,
Gadol,
V'alma, V'vra Kirute, V'yamliv Malkute, V'chayechon U'yomechon, V'yed Yisrael, V'agala U'vizman Kari V'yru, Amen.
Yehesh Melvamel Leolam Omeo Maya.
Maya. Uparach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yomam naseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yithalal shemei v'kusha
Brichu.
le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata v'shachata v'nechamata v'amirat yacha v'rameh.
Amen.
Hey, Rabba, Zachayim Aleinu, Yavkol Yisrael, V'im
Amen.
Osei Wundermumav, Ya'aseh Shalom, Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for giving me added joy in my day by being able to learn with you. Have a good day.